An interesting win now piece has found its way onto the NBA trade market, that being Bruce Brown. In this video, I'm going to break down what the chances are of the Sixers acquiring should they have interest and what his fit would look like on the team, as well as what a potential deal could even look like. So before we dive fully into it, I do want to start with the report here that says the Toronto Raptors are expected to trade Bruce Brown by next month. Now, it is interesting kind of the trajectory of Bruce Brown. He was a guy that essentially got overpaid by the Indiana Pacers last offseason. He fits kind of a unique niche category of player that when you think about how things pertain to the salary cap, that you obviously have your max contract guys taking up the bulk. There's obviously the minimum guys who you fill out roster. And that middle ground is where things get a little bit diluted. And where Bruce Brown has found a nice lane for himself is establishing himself as one of the more elite role players. And that there is a high market for them. And that's why he's getting paid over $23 million this year. Is that a lot for the level of talent that Bruce Brown is? Absolutely. But he's also such a niche player, and there's not a variety of options. So when you think about when I need a player like Bruce Brown, well, there's not very many like that, and that's why the demand fits here. So when talking about that, I do think that is relevant to note. The Pacers did overpay for him last summer, and then obviously he ended up flipped to Toronto as a part of the Pascal Siakam deal. Seems to have worked out for the Pacers. There, at the time of myself recording this is before Game 6 of the Knicks-Pacers, so I do not know what happened in that one. I will be rooting for the Pacers because I hate the Knicks that much. But back to the Bruce Brown conversation here. I do want to note a little bit about what he brings to the table. So I'll start with the stats here. He's not a guy where these stats tell the full story with Bruce Brown by any means, but this season with the Raptors, in his 34 games that he played, he started 11, played 26 minutes per game, averaged 9.6 points, 2.7 assists, 3.8 rebounds per game, shot just 31.7% from beyond the three-point arc, which is concerning there. That is probably my biggest hesitancy when it comes to Bruce Brown. That through his career, he's just a 33.7% three-point shooter on 1.8 three-point attempts per game. But I will note that he has had a season where he shot over 40% with the Brooklyn Nets. He's a player that seems to be maximized by stars, and it was probably with the Nets that he's played his best overall basketball, although he does have the championship with the Nuggets, of course. And that is something to note with Bruce Brown, is he does seem to be a playoff riser. I do think that there is something said about championship identity, that DNA that a guy does possess of wanting the big moment, and Bruce Brown does check that box there. So to take a look at his playoff stats here, you can see in that 2022-2023 season with the Denver Nuggets just last year where they won the championship, that he played in all 20 of the playoff games, averaging 26.5 minutes per game, produced 12 points, 4 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.1 steal, was a very key part of that team. And also looking right above that, the season before with the Brooklyn Nets, they obviously did get swept there, only played 4 games. They were swept at the hands of the Boston Celtics this year, but added 14 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1.3 steals, and shot 42.9% from 3 that year. So he did have a very good shooting season with the Brooklyn Nets. I do think that's closer to the model that he would be asked to play with the Sixers, that he's essentially only going to be taking open three-pointers. He's not PJ Tucker as far as the willingness to shoot Bruce Brown, but he's not a guy that's going to be itching to get shots up. And that does seem to be a bit of where the hesitancy does come from these Sixers end. And I did want to bring up this comment here. There were rumors of Bruce Brown potentially being traded leading up to the trade actually happening, where he was sent up to Toronto there. And the Sixers were kind of whispered to be involved, but there was some skepticism put on top of it. So I wanted to dive in this report that came out midseason, this being from Jake Fisher here. And it talks about the Sixers not being interested. And it writes, the Sixers are prioritizing fit alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey with any potential deadline addition, sources said, and don't seem to covet Bruce Brown, a career 33.8% shooter from deep, as the optimal missing piece. Philadelphia has continued to see a strong return from Patrick Beverley, leaving the Sixers with a clear barometer for any newcomers at this deadline. The Sixers will have to ask themselves if Murray is really the perfect pairing with Maxey in the backcourt, considering his long-term salary and Philadelphia's currently projected cap space for this upcoming summer. So the reason that I left that last part in there, talking about how Patrick Beverley has impressed everyone, is because front offices lie. And I think that was exactly the case there, as Pat Bev was obviously shipped off before the trade deadline. So I think it might have been a bit more of a smokescreen than anything more legitimate. But obviously that Bruce Brown was shipped off ultimately to the Toronto Raptors. The Sixers did not find a way to get involved. And the Murray comment there had to do with DeJounte Murray, who there were plenty of rumors up leading up till the deadline. And I expect plenty more to be coming this summer, to be perfectly honest. But when we talk about Bruce Brown I wanted to ask myself what a trade could look like when talking about the Sixers. That I do think Brown will be a hot commodity. This is a team option that he is being accepted, and obviously that the Raptors are looking to flip him for to get something in return rather than let him walk for free. So I got kind of put my brains together, and here's what I came up with as a mock trade. We're talking about Paul Reed and 2 first-round picks. One of them an actual first-round pick, and then one of them a pick swap there. Now, I don't know if that's quite enough to get it done for Bruce Brown, but I do think that it is going to be slim pickings on the market more than they realize. That the Raptors have no need for Bruce Brown, that they're still a couple years away from contending. Well, I do think that team is trending in the right direction and building the foundation of what could be a successful team with Scotty Barnes and some of the other pieces that they are stacking there, the Manuel quickly trade and all that. Bruce Brown doesn't bring as much value to that team as he would on a true contender. So I do think that they should be open to flipping it for not that much, but we do know that Maxey, when negotiating with him, it's like that crazy dude in your group chat in a fantasy football league who's constantly saying, yo, trade me the best player in the league. I'll trade you my 7th round wide receiver for Christian McCaffrey. Think about it. It makes sense. That's kind of what it feels like when you're negotiating with the Raptors, but Daryl Morey's going to have to do the dance if he wants Bruce Brown, and I do think that there is value in that when you think about what this Sixers team needs, that they do need some of that championship pedigree. They do need guys that are high-level role players, and I also think that there's a little bit of flexibility built in if you do this deal. That to bring up the specifics of this again, what I also think appeals to the Raptors is this is a nice salary dump situation. That Paul Reed is making $7.7 million, and that is a non-guaranteed contract. So what the Raptors could do if they are looking to dump salary is you would get the $23 million off the books for Bruce Brown, and then you would bring Paul Reed. If you want to bring in Paul Reed, keep him for the season at $7.7 million on the books there, you could do that. Or if you have no interest in Paul Reed whatsoever, you take the draft pick, you cut Paul Reed, and you chop more salary off the books. So as the Raptors are this young team that still need to go through the growing pains, this is a nice opportunity to dump salary, clear the books a little bit, get a ton of money off, and then allow these young players to either grow through their mistakes and receive more of an opportunity, or ink them to an extension that could help from the salary cap perspective there. So that is kind of my selling point for the Sixers deal. I do think 1 first-round pick and a potential pick swap would be something worth bargaining for Bruce Brown. It would not surprise me if Toronto tries to keep a higher bar from that, and at that price point, I'm probably out. That I like Bruce Brown, but I don't think he's the difference between the Sixers winning a championship and not. Where I do think the appeal is, and where I think it can be very beneficial to this Sixers team, is probably my favorite characteristic in Bruce Brown's game is his decision-making out of the pick and roll. That he's very good off the short roll, and what that could mean for the Sixers offense is you can use Bruce Brown as the screen setter on some Tyrese Maxey sets that could play some really interesting basketball. That if you're talking about the more that we saw Tyrese Maxey begin to be doubled, most specifically in that Knicks series, that you can present some really advantageous 4-on-3 situations where it's Bruce Brown getting downhill with 3 guys around him attacking the 3 guys with the Knicks. So creating that 4-on-3 advantage when they do go double Tyrese, which we saw more and more of, and I expect to only continue throughout his career. That's an area where I do think could be very effective. I think Brown's numbers are better than the stats would indicate. As I mentioned, 33.7% from 3 overall. I think a little bit of that is watered down from a rough start to the beginning of his career. We can see 25.8% as a rookie in Detroit, also 28.8% in his first season in Brooklyn. I think that he's been a little all over the place, that he hasn't had kind of the true chance to cement himself, find his feet, and as you can see, like just through the teams that he's played for, that he has bounced around plenty. Spent 2 seasons in Detroit, 2 seasons in Brooklyn, a season in Denver, then he spent half a season in Indiana, half a season in Toronto. So for Bruce Brown, it would not surprise me if he's looking for a bit of a long-term home, and I would be open to Philadelphia being that possible place. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. I'm not saying this is a perfect fit. In an ideal world, he is a more willing shooter and a more capable shooter. I do love the idea of bringing some more snipers to this team. That's some high level, and mostly the willingness to shoot is really what's standing out to me. That I think the Sixers have had some decent, efficient shooters, but not guys that are willing to just let it fly. Even a guy like Buddy Hield was majorly overwhelming for his inability to just get off a ton of three-point shots. That's what this team needs around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. But if you need a guy to do the dirty work, focus up on rebounds, make some decisions out of the short roll, all these other things, Bruce Brown does check that box. And by doing this, you're not eating into your cap space in a major way. You still have money to throw at Paul George to complete the roster, all these things. So I do see the appeal if Daryl Morey truly believes in this. I think the more I talk myself through this, I'm most likely not as all in on the Bruce Brown conversation as I was at a period of time, that the shooting concerns I think are too legitimate to fully pass up. So I think I would be content with sacrificing just one first round pick and a pick swap in order to bring him to this team. I don't think that's a crazy price, but just about anything above that, I'm probably out on from the Sixers perspective, especially because the Raptors seem to be in a rush to get a deal done, and the Sixers still have plenty to play out over the course of the offseason. But I do want to hear from you guys in the comments what your thoughts are on a Bruce Brown addition. Let me know if you're in or out, what kind of package you would put together, and if you're drawing the same line that I am. Regardless, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you are smashing that subscribe button to keep the Sixers Digest family growing. Drop a like on this video to let me know you're listening as well. I'll be talking to you next time right here on Pick Swap Media. Peace.